Hello, everybody. Welcome to CoinFund Q&A. Today we have Civic and Vinny Lingam. Vinny, thank you very much for joining us. And we can't wait to hear more about Civic and what you guys are aiming to do with this product.
Great. No, great. Thank you for having me. It's good to be here.
Awesome. So would you take us through a little bit at a high level what Civic is and what your goals are here with this product?
So Civic is an ID sort of identity platform. Okay, and what we're trying to do is we're trying to create the notion that identity information should not be restricted to being, call it, physical objects, right? That's a big issue. So you have to have a physical passport or physical driver's license or physical documents around your identity information. How can we take that? How can we secure it using the blockchain and make it digital and then transfer between one entity and another? And in doing so, can we drop the cost of KYC? Can we sign up for an exchange? Do you have to give them all the information, or is it just a few pieces of information that they need to prove that you are who you say you are, and they will store just a minimum amount of information, and then you wouldn't have a backlog in the exchanges trying to sign up, etc. So this is a problem worldwide, whether it's the crypto world or even just in the banking world, where ID verification is a very expensive, costly, laborious process. It's very much dominated by physical documents, and how do we just digitize that whole process? And so we're trying to build that platform, and eventually it opens us up to doing things like digital and electronic voting for elections, etc. in the long-term sort of vision and roadmap of the company. That's where we want to get to. But for now, we're just trying to digitize everyone's IDs and make it reusable and accessible.
Mm-hmm. So usually we think of identity kind of in the digital domain and in the physical domain quite separately still. We think of physical identity as passports and documents that are being issued by governments. Online, we think of having a Google account or a Twitter account. And of course, both of those domains have kind of a lot of segmentation. And so do you see Civic as kind of going after the paper documents domain and then branching out into digital identity as well?
Well, I think what we're trying to do is bring them both together. So, so the core product we've released right now is a two-factor authentication system, which is what Civic is today, and a passwordless login entry. So that's what we're offering right now to the public. You can try it out, check it out on tokenmarket.net or bankthefuture.com. You can sign up for a Civic account and just log in. And every time you log in or sign up for an account, you have to go re-verify your email address, your phone number, your ID information, etc. So we basically built somewhat of a decentralized type of Facebook Connect service where you can have the Civic app and log into a website. But here's the beauty part: your information isn't being stored on Civic servers. We don't keep any information. We verify, we put the keys on your device, and so it's a one-to-one transaction. You're talking to the third party you're logging into, or it's a two-party system really. There's no the third party is the blockchain, and then they just verify against the blockchain that the keys match the credentials that you're giving them, and they can log you in. So Civic's not tracking what you do, where you're going, where you're logging in. So you could use this for age verification on websites that need that for alcohol, tobacco, adult stuff, whatever. And without giving your personal information, you can just verify that you're over 21. You could do it for opening a new account where they're willing to accept verified credentials. And so we're building a marketplace where these credentials can be verified by multiple parties, and they all earn royalties every time you use it without knowing when, and how you're using that information. And that should drop the cost of compliance and KYC down and giving everyone a real verified digital identity. And that's the smart contracting system that we're busy building to add on to the products we've just launched last month. And combined with that, that's what the Civic tokens will be used for.
Got it. So, in order to verify, for example, somebody's age or some other piece of information about them, within the system has to verify that piece of information at some point initially, right? So how does the user onboard into the system and kind of provide the initial parameters that are then later used to authenticate him elsewhere?
So our apps all have different features, and we're not all so the Android has got a little bit less than iOS right now, but I'll give you sort of more of a generic answer. Not all the features available to everyone right now, but as an example, you would scan your driver's license. We would have a lookup of that information. Would verify, would store credentials that confirm that information being verified by that user on your device. We don't store the information on our servers, and it's gone. And so it only exists on your device, and you choose who you give that verified information to. So when you hand it over to somebody else, you can hand it over with a by signing a message using the crypto keys on your device and prove that you own the private keys for the hashes that are placed on the blockchain, which corresponds with the verification that was done by Civic or another third party.
So you're saying that there's kind of a manual component to this. You'll have people kind of in your organization doing the initial verification, like I said.
No,
okay.
It's not manual. It's all automated. So we have automated lookups on your phone number and your email address linked to public records. We can do KBA, knowledge-based authentication on you. We can send a postcard to your house. We can do a number of different steps we can take. We can make you scan a driver's license, then do a selfie and compare the photo images. We could make you do a voice print to lock your device. We have obviously Touch ID. There's different things we can do to build a profile, make it secure for you. And that's what we focus on. And there may be some manual processes in people who have exceptions, or some, like we've had people who've had their names changed because of marriage, whatever it is. Now the process needs to be more manual because we don't have an automated process around that. But in general, we're trying to move to a fully automated system worldwide.
Okay, so you mentioned that there's a bunch of features. Maybe we just hit those a little bit more specifically. So you mentioned there's phone verification. Fingerprint verification.
Well, fingerprint verification. So let's talk about ID proofing. Okay. So we match your phone number with public records. It's an SMS. You can prove you own that. Then there's a link. Email, same thing. We can send a postcard to your house, and we can prove you live there. You have to tap the code, and we know you live there. We could ask you to scan a driver's license and check the information against DMV records. We can do a selfie and make sure the photo matches. We can check that the driver's license is not fake. And the more data points we add up on your profile, the more secure your ID is believed to be. But the data is always checked, and then the information is discarded. It's not stored in our servers. It's only stored on your phone.
So this is interesting. I always think back to kind of the early days of my participating in blockchain and using things like Bitcoin-based peer-to-peer lending. And a lot of these sites, before they can lend out money to a third party, they will do a series of verifications of this kind. I mean, it was
which is costly. So we make it reusable. So if one site's done it, why should another site have to do it all over again? Especially if it happens in the same 24 hours. Like, why would you redo the same person and incur the cost?
Right. Well, I guess, but my point was kind of like, so for example, in one of the sites, you would have to put in like your Facebook profile, some social profiles, et cetera, et cetera. And what ended up happening was that it turns out that in the US, kind of putting up that information and then ruining your reputation is actually quite costly. But in other countries, it turns out that it's not as costly. So like a lot of people found it okay, for example, to put in a bunch of these parameters and just sort of blow the accounts, right? And like they basically take the loan, they never pay it back, and they're okay to pay their social media accounts for that purpose. Do you see that this kind of identification system, has different efficacy depending on kind of where you are?
Yeah. So let's say, for example, Twitter decided to use Civic. That would be great. And you could verify who somebody is. If you block them, there's no way with a verified Civic account that they could ever be, ever come back as another troll. They'd have to use a fake account. And so, this is one of the beauties of Civic, because the way it's done is everyone's fully identified. Now, you may not know who that person is. It just may be a verified account. If a site says, okay, we're only going to use Civic accounts from now on, and they have to be verified and linked to a social security number, it doesn't mean that site gets the social security number. It just means that they know that that's a unique person. And when they block you, you can't come back again. And so, as sites start using, and we've got a couple of sites now looking to just build the entire login authentication service on Civic, they can actually create a clean site where it's real people. They can verify. I mean, imagine someone builds a dating site on the back of Civic, where that everyone has a social security number, their age, male, female, there's no bots. If you screw up on your account and you start posting spam, you get blocked, you can never come back in again unless you make an appeal and you figure out a way for them to unblock you. But that's the beauty part of the system. Everyone with a government ID number will only ever have one account, but even the government can come to us and ask us for your Civic account. We can't give you them the information. The beauty part of the system is that it only exists on your phone. Only with your permission you can give it. Like, we can get subpoenaed for it. We don't have it. It's encrypted. It's on your device, and that's the key thing. And so you can use those credentials anywhere, and you have to manage your own reputation. So if you pull a scam, it doesn't mean people can correlate, right? So one site won't necessarily know that it's the same Civic user on another site because they have unique keys. But that site can say, well, we're not going to let you back in again. And that's very powerful.
Do you kind of, given the fact that there are different levels of how a user can verify, do you guys give Civic accounts kind of scores that people will be able to tell quickly? Okay.
No, we deal in pretty much like very sort of binary type information, true or false. That's it. You know, and maybe some degrees like, is this person over 21? Yes, like we can do those sorts of things. But we don't do reputation. We don't do credit scores. We don't do. And if we did any of that in the future, it would be you the only person who can see it. And if you want to share it with someone else, you can. But we don't look at your data, so we can't even build a score. You know, we will publish like network stats and stuff around usage behavior, but nothing personally identifiable. Again, we don't know who the people are. We're building this as a fully decentralized way of controlling your identity.
Very cool. And Vinny, how did you get into this kind of product? Is this a pain point that you observed in your life, or are you just kind of looking at opportunities in the world?
No, after Gift, I mean, we realized that identity theft is a big problem. We had a lot of stolen credit cards and we had a lot of chargebacks. And so when I looked at the Gift ecosystem and where there was a big opportunity, I thought that identity hadn't been solved. I also felt that just looking at you know, identity and voting and where the world was going, this was a big issue. So the fabric of society has been woven today, the internet, with anonymous accounts and bots and machines and whatever else. And we don't really have a way of like, if you walk into think about it this way, the internet, it works well with the sense that everyone's kind of anonymous and, you know, and you don't know who people are, but there's obviously, you know, AI is getting better now where they can start passing the Turing test. And so we're getting to the point where, you know, I think if you walk into a store and you know if someone's a robot or not a robot, right? But online you don't. So in the real world, you're able to differentiate real people from machines. In the online world, you can't. And so how do we get to the point where online people can know that this is not a bot, or like, for example, on a dating site, this is a real account, you know, or not. Like I've created fake accounts on dating sites to test out their functionality. It's pitiful. Like I can pretend to be anyone I want to be. And none of the dating sites today seem interested in changing that because they want the bots, because it drives engagement and gets guys to pay or girls to pay for meeting people who aren't real. And if they take away the bots, it's going to drop the income and revenue. So we've had these conversations with a number of dating sites, and I've tested them out, and none of them want to make the move because they're just too fearful of losing the revenue that they get from faking what they're doing. So I'm waiting. You know, we've obviously got aspirations of solving that problem as well. So we will be giving grants to people and tokens who want to build online infrastructure. So part of our token sale was that we have this 33% to activate new areas of interest. So if someone wants to go build a new type of dating site and plug Civic in, we're going to give them some tokens as well and say, yeah, be part of the network. Here's some free tokens for you. And let's see if we can clean this up. And that's just one example. I mean, there's a ton of examples. Forums. You know, forums are a joke. Like the amount of trolls in forums, on Twitter as well, social media. If you could verify and tie real people's details without giving up the privacy part of it, that would be powerful. And so, and eventually the point where people trust the system and the ecosystem really well, where you can actually power national elections, government elections, local stockholder votes, etc. Because now you know identity is tied to an individual. It's locked to a device. The device has got authentication on it, like Touch ID, etc. You can't fake this stuff, and you can tabulate results in real time. So that's the view. The view is, how do we get to a world where, you know, humans control their own identity, and you can prevent machines from, you know, to some extent verifying that they're a human.
So given your experience, like, do you have any data points on, like, for example, how much fraud goes on? I guess what I'm asking is, you know, how do you measure the market opportunity for a product like this?
I think it's something which, if governments start adopting it and saying, well, you can now use a Civic account to go through passport control, then it's everyone in the world, right? How do you get to the point where refugees who run away from a country just have a mobile phone, but they can have a digital ID issued by Civic on their phone? These are the things we want to get to. And this is, you know, again, this is a 5-10 year vision for the company. But I think for now, let's just make it easy to log into websites without username and passwords, because they get stolen all the time and your other accounts get hacked. Let's make the ID infrastructure for the internet unhackable, okay, at scale. So if someone can steal your phone, hack your phone, fine. But they can't steal 7 billion phones and hack them all at the same time. Like, so let's get to that level of scale. So we're solving the problem of username and passwords. and we're moving to passwordless entry with device space, and we're solving the problem of two-factor authentication. So for sites that have usernames and passwords, just add Civic as an additional, so take away SMS and use Civic. So if someone's got a Civic account, they activate that, and now they know they can't get logged into without Civic authenticating and the private keys being passed and signing in a message that they're in, and that's them. So that's our sort of first focus right now. And then obviously new account signups and opening up new accounts with verified information. But that's what we want to play for now. And once we get to a point where there's enough momentum and traction in that area, we can start branch out into all the cool stuff.
Cool. So if you're going after kind of being a login solution or just like an easy sign-in solution for websites, then there's a bunch of players in the market to compete with. Sometimes you have the Google sign-in, sometimes you have the Twitter sign-in, but also people have tried stuff like OpenID, right? OpenID was supposed to give everybody a reason to, migrate to OpenID because it was open, and yet hardly anybody uses OpenID today. So, why do you think that is, and like, how do you break into that market?
Well, this is the beginning of comparison. Windows is to Unix what Civic is to OpenID. Just because it was techie and geeky and no one could use it, but it was powerful, doesn't mean that people would use it. So how do you get to the point where it's mass market? So we built a brand around Civic, and we're making it super easy with great interfaces. Our apps are really good, and it's a very consumer-focused product. But there's one key architectural difference here. All these existing OAuth systems that Facebook, Google, Twitter uses, these are all federated ID systems. Federated IDs is the worst idea in mankind's history in terms of privacy. When you're logging into a website and using a federated ID system to log in, a social login, the social site is tracking what you're doing. They can now serve ads, they can customize it. They're holding your information. When the third-party site's saying, well, I want your social security number, well, unless you're giving Facebook your social security number, they can't verify it. So they have to go through a whole new verification process again. With Civic, you're logging into the site. As long as you can assert your credentials that they're asking for and someone has signed it, Civic or one of our partners, nobody knows that you're doing that except the site receiving it and you. There's no third-party server in the middle tracking this. It's just a confirmation with the blockchain, which is static, and you're logged in. So your privacy is intact and the information is contained. It's fully decentralized. So there's a fundamental difference between three-party and federated systems and two-party and unfederated systems. And that's what Civic has built. And we're the only ones who have basically built a consumer face around this product.
Well, doesn't that make integration in a sense even harder? Because I imagine that if certain participants are using the fact that you're logging in with Google to serve you ads, isn't there a chance that they're maybe making revenue off of that? And if so, why would they switch to a identity solution that kind of doesn't generate revenue?
Let me ask you a counter question to that. How many banks and financial services companies, well, let's just say banks, in the US, out of the 5,000 or 10,000 banks we have, how many of them use Facebook Connect, Google, or Twitter to connect and allow people to log into their banking accounts?
My impression is very few.
I'd actually say zero because I haven't found one yet.
Okay.
And that's because the systems can be compromised, the third-party systems, and no information that gets transferred is verified. With Civic, banks and everyone should do this because it's fully verified. There's no social network sort of component to it. There's no tracking. It's ultra secure. The architectures, we can go into the architecture and the security stuff. It's rock solid. It's blockchain based, decentralized. This is the opportunity. And the question we have is the opportunity for verified information and secure logins bigger than the opportunity for unverified and insecure logins? And just
Awesome. So, so given that you're kind of, you're going with a blockchain sort of solution, but you're also going after a mainstream market. Is there a centralized point where you're kind of managing keys for the mainstream users, so they don't have to worry about that, or is it completely decentralized? I guess what I'm asking is, how much data does the Civic centralized server store about the user base?
So we've got some products and ideas in mind for that in the future. And we want to get to the point where, you can use something like IPFS to create your own personal cloud and store your information there and decentralize it. So we don't back up information. You can use, iCloud or whatever it is to back up. And store in terms of key management, sure. we can allow you to store we can enable you to store your own keys. Again, we're not storing the keys. You'll store it. You'll make sure it's backed up, and we can make the key thing here is making this stuff as easy as possible for consumers to use and giving as many access points. So that's why we're focusing on the crypto community right now. I mean, we have Bitco using us, Token Market, Bank the Future. We have a whole bunch of others I can't mention yet adopting Civic. And so why would you want to go through the whole new KYC process? Why would you want to go through all this if you already have an account with Civic and these other sites are accepting it? So the reusability of Civic across the crypto sites right now is our number one priority, and making sure as many crypto sites are accepting Civic credentials and actually more importantly, doing away with username and passwords for your crypto accounts. I mean, that's a really bad thing right now as it is. And so two-factor authentication is built into Civic. The fact that BitGo is one of the biggest wallets, they've been intimately involved in our architecture and the product, and they're using it now to do two-factor authentication instead of SMS. Like SMS is the worst way to secure your account as a two-factor, and Civic is probably the best, in our opinion, and the opinion of many others in the security space. So, we just want to blanket and make sure that you have a Civic account. You want to be using it every day, everywhere you go in the crypto world, because it just makes sense and it's more secure. And if someone doesn't have your phone, they cannot access your account. They cannot go and steal credentials from another site and use it, because that your phone is your access point.
Mm-hmm. So do you see kind of penetrating the market through a sequence of these kind of partnerships where you basically achieve integration one property at a time? And who do you think is like the biggest kind of internet property that is likely to adopt Civic?
I cannot give you any more information on that, because we've got some interesting deals which haven't really been executed yet. But yeah, I don't want to talk more. I don't want to talk too much about where this is going in terms of sites adopting it. But I can say that what we have done is we've taken a third of the tokens. So we've sold $33 million of the tokens. We have $33 million in tokens left to give away to partners, and that's 330 million tokens. And so there are a lot of partners who are lining up saying, well, the tokens are sold out. I need tokens. How do we get on board? Well, that's easy. Just integrate into Civic. Here you go. And here's a grant of tokens. And we give those tokens away for free to the partners, and that encourages them to sign up and use Civic. So we have a lot of interest there. And they're not going to last forever. So obviously people are lining up trying to get tokens, free tokens from us. But that brings users on board. It reinforces the network, and it's a great model. So instead of selling more tokens, we're just giving tokens away. And it's a really good way of incentivizing the network to take off.
Awesome. I definitely want to get into the tokens. That's my favorite topic. But before we get in deep into the tokens, I just had a few more questions. So I signed up for Civic a few weeks ago when I heard about it, and indeed your user experience is quite lovely. And I was just curious, like, how long has your team been working on it, and like how many people are currently working on it?
There's about 16 or 17 people in the company right now. We're growing. Obviously, we're going to add a few more in the next month or so. Next month or two, we're hiring probably another 10 people or so, 10 to 15 people. Yeah, we've been working on this since I resigned from Gift in August of 2015. So it's about 2 years. My co-founder resigned from his job at the same time, and so. But the idea was really at that point like that was August, and we started working on it in earnest. Towards the end of the year, we raised some money in January. We started hiring a team up. So it's about 2 years all in all, I think, of really hard work. I mean, we've been doing a lot on. We spent a lot of time in the identity theft protection market, trying to figure that out and try to make sure that plays into the blockchain, because we always building blockchain stuff concurrently. That was the big dream. But we use ID theft protection as kind of an intermediary step to try and acquire and track users, and then also learn about how to do the verification and vetting process, which helped us a lot. And now we still have that, but that's more of an upsell. The core product is what we launched now, and it took us about 2 years to build.
So you mentioned you were kind of building a blockchain solution for this in parallel to a centralized solution. Like, was this always a blockchain project, or did you guys realize that was feasible at some point and went in that direction?
It started off as a blockchain product. And then as we wound up building out the ID protection stuff, we realized that some portions of it had to be centralized because of the way the credit bureaus worked. And we felt like, look, it's kind of a necessary evil. If you realize the fact that your information is on a credit bureau already, it is centralized. You have to monitor it. There's no way of doing it in a decentralized fashion. that for ID theft protection, there needs to be a way of monitoring that. And so that, unfortunately, that's just the way it is. But the long-term view is that you shouldn't need ID theft protection in 5 years or 10 years from now, because whenever someone uses your ID information, you get pinged on your phone and you get to approve it. So that's the long-term vision. And so the short-term is just credit monitoring in terms of monitoring services. But the long-term is that just doesn't require any, that's a dead business. We think that no one should ever be able to use your ID credential without your permission.
Mm-hmm. So let's get into the token. So what is the function? What is the name and the function of the civil token?
It's Civic, so the Civic token. I think everyone's starting to call them Civics. It's kind of what they are. So the function is basically it's a token for settlement. So companies will start using and selling information to each other using tokens, and then within the token there's a smart contract built in. So when a transaction settled, it ensures privacy. So one of the key things about the privacy aspects of Civic is that the same way when you walk into a bar and you show your driver's license to the bouncer, he just checks your age, make sure you're good. He walks in, doesn't read all the rest of the stuff, doesn't care where you live or any of those things. He just make sure the age is valid. If the DMV was notified every time you pull out your driver's license or an ID, it'd be kind of freaky, right? The reason it's okay in the world today is because we know the governments can't track a paper document. There's nothing digital about it. You're showing someone, that's it. And so the online world needs a similar level of safety and a feeling of like, well, no one's tracking what I'm doing. So when you walk into you go into an online store, and I'll use an example. You want to go and shop for adult stuff. You don't want them to. You just need to verify that you're over 21. You don't want all your personal information given. And so that's the stuff that happens, like tobacco, alcohol, same thing. When you're making these purchases online, we need to protect kids, make sure the kids aren't buying this stuff. But how do you verify your age? And so what they do is, in the alcohol world, I think they check it at the door when they deliver it. But that creates a lot of problems for them because an adult has to be home to check the IDs, etc. And when they're ordering online, it's the same problem. So how do you do remote ID verification? And how do you do it in such a way that well, do you want your privacy is important? So if you're buying alcohol online, you may not want the person who issued the ID to know that you're buying alcohol for whatever reason. And so how do you make sure that there's this disconnect between the issuer of an ID and then the recipient or the validator, so the validated ID and the receiver of an ID to confirm information? So by using a smart contract, what we're able to do is make sure that the person who issues the ID credentials or verifies your ID credentials, when that ID is being used, they get paid some sort of a royalty, but they don't know exactly who it came from or what user or what use case. And so we're writing the smart contracts in such a way that this anonymity is protected, but people still get compensated for it. Because again, you have to use it for a good reason. I mean, obviously all the companies that accept Civic will be registered with us, so we'll know who they are and what they're doing. But and you're not doing anything illegal, but you don't want the person who issued the ID credentials to know what you're doing with it, because then can you imagine your banks, they already know enough about you. Not every single thing you do thereafter, where you went, where you showed your Civic account, what websites you signed up for, they track all that as well. That's just too much data to give out to any one company. So we've designed the token in such a way that it ensures that there's this level of privacy.
Okay, so just to be like very explicit, what are the conditions under which someone would receive a royalty in tokens?
So the condition would be that someone has validated your ID credentials, it's stored on your device, you give it to somebody else, and that company has said, I will trust any bank ID or any governmental ID. And so there'll be categories, and they'll say banks are fine. And so therefore we say, well, we have a verification from a bank, and this is the cost. The bank's charging $2 for this. And we process the transaction, the bank gets their $2, Civic takes a cut of the smart contract being executed. The bank doesn't know who used it. The bank also could say, we don't want other banks to use it, which is fine. And so another bank wouldn't be, certain banks may say, well, we're the biggest bank in this market. We don't want the small guys using us, but we're okay with telcos using it. So if someone's opening up a cell phone account, they can use it and we'll get paid for that. And so that's kind of how it works. But the goal is to ensure that there's some level of opacity on both sides for the benefit. Remember, our goal is to ensure that we're a consumer data privacy company. Like, that's our view. And so we've created Civics basically to enable data privacy and exchange of personal information with the most regard for privacy and removing the ability to correlate information on the blockchain as well. So we don't store any of your ID information on the blockchain. It's just one-way hashes, and we've done it in a way that there's zero correlation between users, and I mean, I could spend hours talking about the sort of the libertarian view of self-sovereign identities. I don't define myself as a libertarian, but there are obviously some similarities to what we do. I'm actually one of those people. I'm actually just against labels in general. So I think it's each way of thinking about things have got different sub categories and areas, and so I like to say that there are benefits in some of the libertarian thinking around sort of personal self-sovereignty, but there are also downsides around it as well. So you've got to sort of take it with a bit of a pinch of salt sometimes. And so, but I think the key thing is that if we give everyone in the world the ability to control their own personal information, their privacy, and they can do what they want with it without knowing there's someone looking over their shoulder and tracking them, I think the world's in a better place than where it is today, where I think privacy is just not something which is widespread enough.
Mm-hmm. So just to bring it back to the tokens a little bit, can you talk a little bit about what does your token supply look like? Does it exist today, and how is it spread between kind of the community? My understanding is you guys are going to be doing a token sale, but also between sort of the team and early supporters of the project, and also how does it get issued over time, or is it a fixed supply of tokens?
So we took a very, very interesting view on this. I mean, we were basically creating a digital commodity, an asset we're putting out in the market. We sold a third of the tokens, and we have a pre-sale for up to $33 million of tokens, 330 million tokens, and essentially those tokens are issued and to people who wanted to participate in the network. And the pre-sale wound up selling out, but we made sure we carved out $11 million for the crowd sale, which goes live on Wednesday. So these are smaller buys up to $25,000. And if that sells out, then the pre-sale buyers get refunded 1/3 of the allocation. They get 2/3. Everyone's happy, and the network is nice and widely distributed with lots of people holding and participating in the network. So that's 1/3. The other 1/3 is going to network participants, so companies that want to come on board and bring their users and bring their integrate our platform into theirs and make sure that things are more secure. So there's an incentive for them to earn effectively free tokens by participating in the network. And then the last third is the company third. So what's interesting is that we didn't look at this as the founders, sort of allocation. Myself and Jonathan, my co-founder, we're founders of Civic. We're shareholders of Civic, along with all the other shareholders who some may or did or did not participate in the token sales. They're kind of the two separate issues. One is a sale of digital assets and call it API keys and licenses, and the other is the equity structure of the company. So we felt strongly that the tokens belong to the company. It's not a personal endeavor. The company owns it, and so all our employees have stock options in the company. We're Delaware C Corp. We're recognizing the token sale as income because we're selling something, and we're not doing any fancy offshore structuring in Switzerland or in BVI. I mean, this is a US C Corp backed by venture capitalists, and this was a sale event as far as we're concerned. And so, so what do we do? Those tokens will vest over 3 years to the company in the sense that they'll unlock over 3 years in the company. And after year one, we will have 1/3 of tokens available that we can sell. I'm not saying we will, we can. And year two and year three, so I think we had enough in terms of token sales, $33 million in the last for quite a while. So there's no incentive for us to sell, but there may be a reason we want to for a strategic purpose, etc. We could look at it, but obviously we're very conscious of putting coins in the market. I think selling more coins for no good reason would we want to make sure that the network effect expands. Because remember, if we're as a company, we're the biggest holder of tokens in the network. There's no one more incentivized to make sure this thing works than we are. And so that's so the team, no individual has got allocated any tokens. The co-founders, the team, no one participated in the pre-sale. It was pretty much arm's length, and even in the token sale, if we do participate, it'll be it'll be at an individual level, and everyone's capped at 25K. I don't think I'm going to participate in the pre-sale either. I think it's just going to be very much we actually want to align our interests with the company and not at an individual level with the tokens. So that's the way we're thinking about this. It's different to the way the other tokens have been done.
That's great that you guys are thinking about the different nuances of that. The question is, do you anticipate that that Civic tokens will be traded on
I mean, I think if you look at the history of anything that's being sold, whether it's pairs to Beanie Babies to Magic the Gathering cards to tokens, everything gets traded at some point on exchanges from eBay to any crypto exchange. So, I mean, I think it's fair to say that in time everything gets traded. So that would be my answer to you without being specific.
Okay, and so like, what do you think drives demand for people to buy? What can I get? Let's say, if I went and purchased the token from somebody or you know, and then what does that buy me in the system?
So right now, think of it as a pre-sale, like a kind of a Kickstarter type thing, right? So we've sold the tokens, and they're going to have a lot more utility once the network is fully expanded, and we've got the smart contracting system working well. So we're building it on RSK, so it'll be Bitcoin based. We're issuing the token as an ERC20 token, which will convert to RSK when the time is right. So I think what you get right now is you get a seat at the table for when this thing goes live later this year or early Q1. And I think people are excited about the different possibilities that are there for this. And so I think it's more of just an excitement about the white paper and what we're trying to do with Civic. And that there is utility in these smart contracts. So a lot of companies are saying, well, we can use this to reduce our KYC costs 80%. This can evolve. But I think the idea, it's a very different way of thinking about things. Like you're thinking about this as we're building a public asset, a public utility. And we will only own, as a company, 1/3 of that utility. Everyone else owns the rest, and it's a public asset. Like we may not be the only company operating on the Civic token network. So other companies can come in and do the same thing we're doing. They can build apps. They can verify users. They can exchange it. That's the whole point of what we're trying to build. It's an open ecosystem to a large extent. Now we obviously will be the biggest brand, and this is the rails. But there's nothing preventing other companies from getting into it as well and doing something similar if they can go and execute and build a client base.
So it's really interesting that you guys are doing this on RSK, right? Because this might be the first ERC20 crowdfunding that is not on Ethereum.
Well, it'll be on Ethereum. The pre-token gets issued on Ethereum, okay. and then when we're ready to launch on RSK, then we'll move it across. Now, the reason for this is our entire platform was built 2 years ago. Well, we started building 2 years ago. It's built entirely on Bitcoin. I mean, at the time, Ethereum was basically barely an idea that was funded. And so it's built on Bitcoin. And so to make this an ERC20 token and then make it compatible with our existing infrastructure, it's probably not the right way to go to do it. Now, we could do it if RSK or Bitcoin, something had a Bitcoin didn't work. We could obviously move it across, which we're kind of chain agnostic, but we're trying to get this live in the market as quickly as possible. And so it makes more sense just to go with RSK. And that's the path we're on right now. And we'll convert the token over as the need arises.
Mm-hmm. I see. Can you talk a little bit about, given that your crowdfunding is coming up, what are some of the details of that? When is it going to happen, and what should people be aware of with respect to this particular sale?
So we're not going to sell out in 30 seconds by design. We think that's a vanity headline. I mean, all those sales are typically pre-booked. On the day, the people who get to the site at 6 a.m. Pacific time on Wednesday, 21st of June, will have a fair chance with everybody else. There will not be the ability to write bots and scripts where you have to have a Civic account, so you have to have a Civic app. We're monitoring for irregular behavior, etc. We will, refund anything that looks suspicious in terms of accounts that people try to create. If you try and put multiple SIM cards in the phone and try and create multiple accounts, it's not going to work. You're going to get your coins back. We're monitoring that very carefully, and so we are being very strict about how we do it. We've got some pretty cool software in our apps that helps us, fingerprint to some extent, the origination of the identity credentials. And so, so I think it gives everyone a fair chance. And, some people already made the comment, well, if you've only got $11 million and 25K is the maximum, you're only going to get 430 people. That's not wide enough. That's not quite how we've designed it. So we will be announcing the details of that later on. But we've designed this in such a way that 10,000 people could buy in. And I think everyone gets a fair shot at having a piece of the network and being part of this ecosystem and this community, the Civic community. I mean, we've got 2,500, I think nearly 3,000 people in our Telegram group in 2 weeks. This is growing, and the movement around the vision for digitizing identity information worldwide and giving it power to the people in their pockets is a very powerful vision, which everyone buys into. And once it's and especially when you say it's like no government can force the release of information, so no subpoena, like we don't have it. That's very powerful, because now when we look at going to foreign countries around the world, we're not breaking any laws because people are storing their own information. There's no information stored on Civic servers or anything like that. And so people who are very privacy conscious, I mean, Europe's, they have the whole right to be forgotten mindsets and laws. And so we're thinking about all these things. We're saying, how do we enable people to be self-sovereign to some extent, but still fit within the confines of society and make sure this stuff works. And so it's exciting for us. And I think a lot of people feel the same excitement. So we've tried to make this as fair as possible. Some people are going to argue, well, it's not really fair. But then the reality is, it's you can never please everybody. So we've done this in a way which is at least thoughtful and first come first serve basis to a lot of people, and that's just the way it is.
So at CoinFund, when we study token sales, we've seen the whole spectrum. We've seen sales where about 100 participants and like a really huge buy-in, maybe signaling that you have quote unquote or institutions participating. On the other end of the spectrum, we've seen sales like, for example, the Ethereum pre-sale, which had almost close to 10,000 participants. What number would you like to see kind of participate in the Civic sale?
I'd like to see north of 10,000. The way it's been designed, and we've purposely actually sort of no one particular whale or buyer has had the ability to buy more than $500,000 worth in the pre-sale. So if you look at it and then they only guarantee sort of 2/3 of that, which is $330K. So we've got a lot. I mean, we had people trying to buy $2 million, $3 million worth of Civics. We cut everybody, whether you were an investor in the company, whether you're a friend of the family, don't care what. Everyone had a maximum of $500K. So there's a ton of demand out there for this, but we're trying to get this spread as wide as possible. And so we've basically, we could have basically sold I don't know, a lot more. And we capped it, and we basically said, look, this is just the way it is, because for this network effect to take off, it needs to have more than 200 people. It needs to have 10,000, 15,000. Look how successful Ethereum has been with 10,000 people initially, right? So you get to the 10,000 plus level, you get 15,000 zealots. You have people who are just, they just love the project. They're behind it. They want to make sure this thing works. They tell their friends about it. Like, I've been inundated with so many introductions in the past 2 or 3 weeks. I can't even keep up my emails and my messages anymore. I'm like, apologize to anyone who's emailed me and haven't responded. I get too many, and we're going to create like a channel for these people to go in, like a business development channel. If you want to help people get on board with Civic, there's a way of doing it. Because I'm one man, unfortunately, I can't do everything. And so, but this is the thing, I can engage. And the difference with Civic, by the way, is that in Ethereum, they don't know who the 15,000 or 10,000 holders are, and people just send Bitcoin to an address or whatever it is. With Civic, you have to have a Civic account. You have to, you'll share your email address and your phone number. And so that's the thing. Even though the information's on your device, when we say you're going to participate in the sale, we need your email address and your phone number, and then you choose to share with us to participate, and that's one of the terms. So you share it with us, and now we can email you. So once a month or once a quarter, you'll get an update. This is what's happening in the Civic network. This is how you can help. This is how you can get involved, how you can stay engaged. And that's powerful versus the other token sales where they don't know who owns these tokens. And so how do you rally the troops? How do you build an army? How do you get people to really go out there and fight the cause? And so we thought about this, and we said, well, we don't want an army of 200 people. We want an army of 10,000, 20,000. And how do you get as many people involved as possible? And the more people involved, the more you know that this network effect compounds quickly, and everybody benefits.
Mm-hmm. So KYC, especially at crowd sale, has been kind of a prominent issue. Like, for example, we ran a Twitter poll a few months ago, and we kind of asked crypto investors. We said, is KYC a deal breaker for you in a sale? And the results were interesting. It was about a third, and a third. And 1/3 of the people said, this is a total deal breaker. If there's KYC, I don't want to participate at all. And then the third said, we don't care about KYC. We're happy to do it. And then the middle third said, it really depends on the product. You can swing us. If we love the product, we'll go in and we'll KYC. Do you think this is just sort of a temporary thing? Is it just a cultural thing of the current crypto investors just kind of coming from that libertarian and hacking culture? And do you think that's likely to change? And do you think that maybe Civic could even help that and be a part of that?
Well, I think we definitely want to help it. I think people realizing that. So first of all, we're not doing KYC and everyone participating. We're just doing email and phone number. So just a basic contact method and a basic Civic account. You don't need to have a verified Civic account to use us, to be part of the crowd. So that's the first thing. But I think just being able to get basic email, phone number is like, if someone's buying tokens and you're part of the network, you should have communication with these people. You shouldn't have just these anonymous people out there owning your tokens. I mean, how do you build a community that way? So that's what we've done. We've said, how do we do this better? And quite frankly, we think more and more companies are using our model. We're already having companies come to us and say, we're going to do an ICO or token sale, and we want to use Civic to verify the users. And guess what? If we have 10, 15, 20,000 crypto buyers already using our platform to buy with Civic, buy Civic tokens, then it's even easier for you, because now they don't have to do anything else. They can just come and buy your tokens. And so we think this is a huge use case for the crypto world. And in some cases, some cryptos may want to exclude certain countries or exclude certain people for legal reasons. They're in different countries, and they can do that. They can say, well, you need a verified account, and this is why. And then they can still, within the boundaries of the legal framework they operate in, make this available to people. And they don't have to collect all the personal information on the person. I mean, we have a private login feature where you could just literally log into a website and give no information, but there's a unique identifier for you. And so then you can keep maintaining your privacy. But they could ask the question like, is he a US resident or not? And the answer would be, no, he's not a US resident, or yes, he is, and let him in. And you maintain that level of privacy. So it's very powerful what you can do if you just think about things in the right way, as opposed to looking at the ways things are done in the past and assuming it's just not possible.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. And I had one more question. So it's always interesting to see how companies in blockchain, how they look at fundraising. And of course, you have your traditional tech startups. They're taking VC investment. And then more recently, you have this phenomenon of token sales, where you're just raising straight through tokens. But the reality is that companies often combine different methods of fundraising. A company will often take a little bit of seed money to get to sale, and then they'll do the sale and kind of go from there. And it's interesting to see that I think you mentioned you have had initially VC investment, and now you're doing this fundraise through a token mechanism. And I'm just curious, like, how do the investments compare from the standpoint of investors? Like the guys who invested in your private equity, like what do they see as the return mechanism on that investment for them?
So I think when people invest in the company, investing in me, obviously a lot of my previous investors from Gift, I mean, we were 3x oversubscribed in our seed round, so it's just more of like, okay, Vinny, we have no idea what you're talking about, but here's some money. And now it's like, oh, okay, this makes sense. And I think the returns for them is, eventually we make a profit and we're able to figure out from there. We have no expectation of selling the company. We're not trying to sell the company. We're not trying to exit. We're not trying to do anything fancy like that. And so, I think it's just long-term holders and investors and believe in the mission and vision of the company to change the world and democratize identities, to make sure that we can, we can have a positive impact. And from a financial return perspective, if we build a great company with a great service and we already have ways of monetizing and we monetize it, I think everyone benefits. So I think it's just a lot of long-term investors and guys who know me well and trust me.
Excellent. All right, Vinny, well, thank you very much for joining us. It's been like super interesting. Is there any, is there anything that you want to say before we go, maybe about the product or the token sale that's coming up that you think people should know?
No, I think it's good. Thank you very much. There's some good questions. I managed to get through everything. Want to thank all the viewers out there for following me on Twitter at Vinny Lingham and engaging. And it's really great for all the support we've gotten and people in the Telegram groups. And I really appreciate all the extremely positive sentiment we've gotten from this. So thank you everyone for all your participation and looking forward to changing the world with you.
All right. Well, fantastic. Cool. And thanks again for joining us. And we look forward to following your progress with Civic, and good luck on your fundraising as well.
Great. Thanks. Take care. Bye-bye.
All right. Take care. Thank you.